Word
Hi,
Insights.
welcome to World Insight. My name is Sarah Blue, and I want to thank God for everything. I want to thank God for your lives too. And thank you as well for always tuning in to one or more of our several programs. God bless you. Now, today's topic on Word Insight is a bit tricky because I really don't know how to word it. You can just have your pick between the two. Getting blessed via the third party, or getting your prayers answered via this third party. I hope that as we go on, we'll be able to understand better what I mean by this topic. So, going forward, in life, there are sometimes when we pray, God does not answer us the way we expect Him to. You understand? God, whenever we ask Him for something, we should always know that God always answers us, especially when it is something that aligns with His will. He will answer us. And sometimes, even when it does not align with His will, He may want to please us in such a way that, like for instance, now let me use our father Abraham as a case study. He was blessed. God really blessed him because God loved him. And that love that God had for him was actually earned. Yes, I would say that he earned that love. Because for him to live, to just hear a voice and then decided to obey that voice to the letter, he earned that love that God had for him. I must say this. So sometimes God may want to reward us for our effort, for our love for Him, in such a way that even when we are praying amiss, He will want to answer us. So that's the case with Abraham when he had an affair with his wife's maid, Hagar. It wasn't the will of God. The will of God was that he would have a son through his wife, Sarah, despite how advanced they were in age. But God had to honor him also because of the years of his service. And God also had to show him that it wasn't that he had problem sexually. You understand? It was just that he had to go through some phases before he would be able to give him the promised child. So that's the point that God was making when he allowed Hagar to get pregnant by the same Abraham who could not impregnate his own legal wife. So, but I don't want to talk about Abraham or his problems. I want to focus on Hagar and Ishmael. So, as I was saying, Abraham earned that love that God had for him. So God had to honor him by giving him a child that even though it was outside wedlock. Now, after having Ishmael, he felt happy and he felt fulfilled, even though it was not through his wife Sarah. And even though Sarah was going through a lot, she just had to bear the pain of watching her husband impregnate someone else and watching another woman's son grow up in her own home. But like I said, let me not dwell on them. Let me focus on what we are talking about. Now, sometimes in life, as I was saying, God may not answer us the way we want Him to answer us. Sometimes when we pray to God, we expect Him to answer us in a certain way. Sometimes when we pray to God, we expect Him to answer us directly. But most times, if we really sit down and we think about everything, we realize that God is always answering us. Most of the time, it may not be the way we expect. It may not even answer us directly like that. But it may answer someone that is close to us, that He knows that He can trust with the blessing He wants to bless us with. He will bless those ones because they are well equipped to handle that blessing and use it to help us grow. I hope you are following this. This is a very important topic. It's a very important discussion. And I want us to get what we are driving at. You understand? Now, our Bible verses will be from Genesis chapter 21, verse 9 to 21, where the Bible was talking about how Sarah, after having Isaac, now felt she does not need any rival in her home, seeing as she now has her own son. She doesn't want anybody competing with her son. And especially when she saw that Hagar was mocking her. So she now told Abraham to chase Hagar and her son away. And even though it was so very painful for Abraham to heed this command or this instruction by Sarah, after seeking God's face, God told him that he should do it, that he should let them go, because Isaac was his real heir. So Abraham now had to let Hagar and Ishmael go. And he released them without giving them much. He only gave them a bottle of water, which could only last for so long. So anyway, they got into the wilderness. That is Hagar and her son. They got into the wilderness, and the water was spent, and they were thirsty. They were hungry. They didn't know where to turn. So Hagar now put the child under a tree, and she herself now walked off some sort of distance, so that when the child eventually gives in to starvation, she will not be there to watch him die. But as the case may be, and as God would have it, when God was, giving some good account of Abraham, he said he trusted Abraham to teach his household to follow in his way, which was what Abraham did with Ishmael. Abraham had already taught Ishmael how to pray to God. So while they were there in that wilderness, that's Hagar and Ishmael, Hagar was busy crying and mourning her life, and bemoaning her life. But Ishmael was praying to God and asking God for help. After a while, God heard, because if you read very well in verse 17, the Bible says, "And God heard the voice of the lad, and the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said unto her, What aileth thee, Hagar? Fear not, for God hath heard the voice of the lad where he is." Now, this particular verse is very, very key, because we could see now that there's a difference between crying and bemoaning your fate and lamenting. There's a difference between that and actually praying to God. Now, while Hagar was crying and bemoaning her fate and expecting the child to die and her herself to perish in the wilderness, Ishmael, saying as he had been taught by his father, he was busy praying to God and asking God for help. And God had to answer the lad. But when God answered the lad, he did not go directly to the lad. Because Ishmael was, I think he was 12 years old at that time. He was still so very young, that even if God opened his eye to see the blessing that surrounded him, he may not be able to manage it properly. So God had to speak to his mother. Sure, you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, it was one person that prayed. It was another person that was answered. Sure, you see? It was Ishmael that prayed to God, but it was Hagar that God released the answer to and gave the idea to. And God opened her eyes to see the blessing that surrounded her. She was not seeing, because she was so carried away with her problem. She couldn't see the blessing that God has blessed her with. See the two. Now, so, and while God was raised, God had to tell Hagar that I heard the lad's voice, not your own lamentation or crying, because that wasn't what was going to solve their problem. It was because of the lad's prayer. So God had to let her know that I am answering you because of Ishmael. And then God now opened her eyes, and she saw a well and saw the water there, and they decided to dwell there. We'll stop here today and continue with part 2 tomorrow.